Joe Dumars is synonymous with excellence, humility, and superstardom. An MVP of the NBA Finals, two-time NBA champion, and member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Please welcome a true Pistons legend and a great friend to Detroit, the one and only number 4, Joe Dumars!
Joe Dumars.
Mitchell.
How are you? You should know, and it's fair to say now because I don't cover Joe anymore. Joe lives in LA most of the time, although he's still got a house here. And Joe and I, for, I want to say it's probably 25 years, have been eating breakfast together at Leo's Coney Island up on 15th and Telegraph every 3 or 4 weeks. And I want you to know that I don't think in 20 years worth of eating breakfast, we ever talked about anything that was really pertinent to like my job covering sports. Because Joe would text me or call me and say, there's a lot of problems in the world, Mitchell. We need to talk about it. And we spent very little time talking about sports and a lot of time talking about the world.
Yeah, very little. That's why I did it. It was always great meeting at Leo's, and you're right. We hardly ever talked about sports. We were talking about everything in the world except sports.
Well, you've always been interested in everything. I mean, I remember early days in the Pistons. You used to be the only guy in the locker room reading a book.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what attracted. The first part, I said, this guy's different because he was sitting over reading a book. Did
My
you take
teammates had magazines they were reading.
Yeah. I know the magazines your teammates read. Yeah, they weren't reading them either. They were mostly looking at them.
They had magazines.
Yeah, but they were magazines. Yes, technically. Yeah, but did you ever have to hide or diminish how intelligent you were in the NBA?
Not really. Not really. I think I was respected that that I was a little different. But when people talk about reading to me, I have to talk about my 4th grade teacher. Being from Louisiana, you know how everything is French in Louisiana. So I had a 4th grade teacher named Mitch Albom, and Ms. Dumars used to read. I don't know. Did you guys do this in school? Like like they have a reading period, like for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like everything
stopped.
stopped. And
Quietly,
the teacher would just read, and she would read for like those 30 minutes, and I was just, mesmerized listening to her read. And I became, a prodigious reader of everything. And so the only thing I had to hide was when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, after school, I would tell guys, I got to go home and do something. But I'd go to the library and I'd read for about an hour, and then I'd go back to the park and meet the guys and all. But I was always a reader just because of a 4th grade teacher I had.
And how much, because we're raising money here, not just for Haiti, but for Lipke and our literacy program there. And it's interesting, when we started that place, our first goal was, we're going to take over this abandoned rec center. It had all been broken down, and we needed to fix it up, but we fixed it up beautifully. Matthew Stafford built a football field, the Pistons did a basketball court, the Tigers. In fact, it's the only place in Detroit, I believe, where all 3 sports teams are represented under a single roof in a charitable effort. And we thought, okay, we'll do 1 hour a day of tutoring with the kids, whatever their issues are, whatever their homework is, social studies, history. And very quickly, we eliminated that and said reading, because reading remains such a challenge here in our country. I mean, as wealthy as we are, literacy is a huge problem, and particularly in Detroit. And there are adults who are functionally illiterate, and you know how hard that is to get through life that way. So how much did that, Miss Joubert was her name?
Miss Joubert.
Joubert. It's got a Haitian feel to it, by the way.
Bit, yeah.
How much did that make a difference in what you have been able to do with your life beyond basketball? Because Joe doesn't dribble anymore, I have to tell you. Joe is a very, very highfalutin executive at, I don't even know how to describe it, it's such a big operation, but they handle a lot of athletes. But reading was integral to that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And So reading for me is I tell my kids, I tell them, oh yeah, I had the internet when I was a kid. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, it's called a library.
Yeah.
Like you went and read. And so for me, it opened my eyes to the world. I'm in Louisiana. I'm born in 1963, so it's like mid 70s, and what I was exposed to, if that is what I grew up around, and that was all I saw, it limits what you think you can become. Yeah. But going to the library every day and just reading books about different things, different parts of the world, it just started opening my eyes to what could be in life. And so I always say when I'm speaking or doing anything, one of the best gifts you can give to a kid is to expose them to as much as possible, because they'll find their passion if you put them in situations where they can see more than just their existence. And so I always say, and you and I have had this conversation many a times, man, like you have to expose kids to so much and let them find their path. But if all they see is this, it's hard for them to imagine what they could really become.
Yeah. Now, I remember you telling me a thing that did not have to do with reading, but had to do with being exposed. When your dad decided, who you adored and I've written about, decided, I think, to take you to work one day or something. You weren't sure what it was. Tell that story and how that had influence on you.
So my dad drove a 18-wheeler, and he delivered groceries to all the grocery stores down in Louisiana. And so he'd get up at 4 a.m., hit the road about 6, and he'd finish about 6. And it's Louisiana, and it's the summer, and it's hot. And so that was my summer job once I turned 15. And, right away, the first stop, I get off truck, he's in the truck, he's pushing stuff to the end of the truck, I'm putting it on thing that, take it in the store, right? And so right away, I want to impress my dad. He's like, he's smoking a cigarette. He's like, you might want to slow down, Chief. Dad, I got this. So he said, oh, okay. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like a zombie, and I'm like about to drop. And I told Mitch, I said, I knew then, I have to become something great in life, because this is not it here.
That's not my job.
Yeah, this is not my job here.
And your dad wanted that for you.
Yeah.
I mean, he did not want you to follow in his footsteps. He wanted, like many parents, he wanted go beyond me. There was no envy in that.
Absolutely. And he didn't know what that was. He just knew he wanted me to be something great. And he truly was, he and my mom both were truly the type that said, look, I really don't care what you decide to become, as long as it's something good and you are your best at it. And so they really instilled that. I heard that my entire life, just about, like, look, if you're going to do something, and you have to pour your heart into it.
Yeah. Now, when you were with the Pistons in the Bad Boys era, and I think we have some footage of this, you were a fantastic player. You were an all-star player. But the other guys were louder. Isaiah got a lot of attention. He was, number 1 pick, and obviously Dennis Rodman had his own things, and Sally and all the rest of it. But do you remember when you won the MVP of the finals, the first year that the Pistons went in it, and you said, I'm going to Disneyland right there. Mm-hmm. I'm going to test your memory. I'll tell you it if you don't remember. But we were in the locker room, and the champagne was flowing and all the rest of it, and I came up and said something to you. Do you remember what it was?
No, what?
So I said to Joe, congratulations, you're about to lose your anonymity.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he looks at me, and he's, laughing, he's smiling, whatever, like that. And then the champagne, and I got pushed out of the way, and you know what that's like. And 5 minutes later, Joe somehow pushes through the crowd and finds me and just pulls me off to the side, a little back room. He says, hey. I said, what? He said, what does that mean, anonymity? What does that word mean?
Just got from Louisiana. They don't say anonymity in Louisiana. I was like, I'm trying to celebrate. I was like, wait, anonymity. What is that word?
But your curiosity, even at that moment, to learn something,
Absolutely.
and I never forgot that. I said, God, of all the things to do, like, I got nothing else going on here. I just won the MVP, or we just won the championship. I got to find out what that word means. I don't like not knowing what that word means.
That happened to me one more time.
When was that?
I'm playing, and we're in New York, and Pat Riley is coaching New York at the time. And he yells to the ref, the Pistons are being, they were shooting free throws. He's like, they're being disconcerting. They've been disconcerting. And I looked over at him, and I walked over to him, and I was like, what does that mean? Disconcerting. And he said, don't bleep with me, Joe. Don't bleep. Don't.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm dead serious. And he looked at me, he said, you're serious, Hal? I said, yeah, what is this? He said, and he went through this explanation during the game, explaining disconcerting me. So yeah, you're right. I was always curious.
You may not have won that night, but you got a new word.
Yeah, but I got a word out of the game.
Yeah. Well, that's good. When you left the Pistons, I never thought that we had many discussions about what are you going to do afterwards with your life, remember? And I believe that when you first retired, you contemplated a lot of things, but you ultimately chose the front office, and then you ultimately chose to leave the front office and do what you're doing now. What were you thinking during those times when you chose to do it, and then when you thought, that's it, we're done with this?
I do a pretty good job of compartmentalizing things. So I told all of my teammates, Grant Hill and all these guys I played with towards the end of my career, I said, guys, they were like, Joe, you're so old. You're 35. And, so I said, you're right. And when I retire, I'm never going to play basketball again. Like, yes, you will. Well, I haven't.
Never.
Ever.
Never played basketball.
Ever.
Never picked it up just to see how you could shoot?
I picked it up and rebounded for my son, for Jordan, but like playing, I never played it again. So I was done. Like I had no regrets. I poured everything in it, and it was over. And so the same thing with the front office. It was great, 15 years, we won, and I never looked back. And and so I can compartmentalize things, and then that was great, and move on. And so afterwards, Jordan was playing. My son was playing over in Germany, and I went and spent almost a full year just around Europe, back and forth to Germany, and then going to see friends in Spain, Italy, wherever else, and then decided to take this gig out in LA, and been out there for the last year or so. And so, but once it's over for me, I don't long to go back and relive it, and I just don't. I never have.
Are you saying that if you and I went to a basketball court,
you'd win?
I would win.
You would win.
This has to be filmed, okay? I am going to film this. Because the only time in my life I ever played a basketball player was John Sally.
Oh, good.
And John and I had this bet, because John was that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And John and I had this bet that he would spot me 10 points to 11 and the ball. So we went out to a gym. It was 10-0 before I did anything. I didn't have to do anything. Sally went like this, drew with the ball, threw it to me. I took it, I shot it and it went in. I said, we're done, let's go home. He said, oh, okay. Let's do this again. Gave me 10 more points, beat me 2 times in a row, 11-10. I never scored because he actually put his hand up, and that changed everything. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure you would still win the game.
I don't know.
But you mentioned your travels around also. You are, my observation is, a student of the world. You love to see things, travel. You were way ahead of the game with foreign picks and foreign scouts. You had a guy, I forget his name, Tony something or another, who was always, when we would meet, you said, I got a call from, I don't know, Bulgaria. There's a 7-footer over in Bulgaria that we're going to look at. And of course, part of what we're doing tonight is also about another part of the world. And I I believe God kind of puts you in places, and you're there, and you just do, I don't know why. I ended up in Haiti after the earthquake. I'd never been there before. And I ended up at this orphanage, and I remember standing there, and my hands were by my side. I was looking at the wreckage of the earthquake 2 weeks later, and all these people, and everybody's starving, and I had my hands by my side, and I felt two little hands in my hands. And I looked down, there were two kids had taken my hands and started just walking with me. And I think, that was the moment for me. I said, well, somehow I belong here. Talk to me a little bit about your feeling about our responsibility towards places in the world besides just in our own borders.
Yeah, so I've heard this the last, probably over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've heard like 2 or 3 different people say, look, we don't own anything here. We're just renting this. Like, you don't get to take this with you, you know what I mean? And so we just rent it, and you pass it along. And so I grew up in a household that was truly a household about paying it forward. Like, you have to pay it forward. That it's imperative that you do so. And I had parents that talked about humility, paying it forward. And my dad was born in 1926, and my mom was born in 1936. And they grew up in deep South Louisiana through the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So you can imagine what life was like for them. Well, I didn't have to imagine because I heard it every night at the kitchen table about how these things made them feel inside. And so they always expressed to us, I'm the youngest of 7, and they always expressed to us about, you do not want to make people feel what we've been made to feel. And so you hear that every day. You hear that becomes a part of your DNA. And so to move to Detroit and come from Louisiana and play basketball here and try to be a good person, that wasn't like an act or something hard for me to do. It was a part of my DNA because I grew up in a household where people talked about how you can make them feel one way or the other. You can make a person feel really bad about themselves, or you can lift somebody's spirits. And so I was fortunate to have parents like that talked in those ways to us. It was important. It was a big part of who I became in life.
In the question that we've been posing to everybody here, one person in your life who kind of altered your path. Yeah. Was it in your parents, or was it somebody different?
I would say ultimately them, but I have to say my brother Mark. And Mark passed away about 8 years ago. And Mark was 2 years older than me. And so I'm 10, he's probably 12. I'm the youngest in the family.
How many brothers and sisters you have?
I have 5 older brothers and 1 older sister. And it was funny because everything that was written about me, like when I was playing with the Pistons and all, like personality-wise and who I was as a person, it was him. I was just emulating him because his spirit was so good. Like, he was the best person I ever knew in my life. And so like when I was ready to get upset and in the park and mad, he would put his arms around me like, no, you don't want to act like that. No, you want to be humble. No, you like everything that my instincts told me to do was wrong, he would always grab me like, nope, we're going to go home now. And he talked to me the whole way home about, this is how you want to be. And you're going to be great one day, and I want you to act the right way, and I want you to say the right things and treat. So everything I became, I would read it, and he would read it, and I would go, he's like, do they know you? And I'm like, yeah, they know me. But I just emulated him because anything that anybody ever wrote or said about me, it was really him.
Do you think you'll see him in heaven?
I'll have to. I have to, absolutely.
Did you have any stories growing up about, or any near-death experiences in your family, or somebody told you that what they think happens when you die?
Well, I'm from Louisiana. We believe in voodoo. So yeah, you hear about stuff all the time. Okay. You may not even want to hear about it.
Yeah, really. I'm not sure I want to go in that direction.
You don't want to go there.
Yeah. By the way, the Haitian community should know that I think Dumars has a little.
My father's grandfather came from Port-au-Prince.
There you go. So, Haitian. So you understood everything that was being sung out here before?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. You speak the language.
Absolutely.
Do you keep up with the Bad Boys guys and all?
Yeah, I see Sally out in L.A.
Drinking his wine.
Drinking his wine. Talked to Isaiah probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So a few of the guys I see, you know.
Does anybody talk to Dennis?
Kim Jong-un. Right?
Yeah, he apparently does. Yeah. Well, I know I can feel in the room how much you can live in LA all you want. You can buy the biggest house on the beach. You are never not going to be a Detroiter around here.
I went by Franklin cider the other day, man.
Please say thank you to Joe Dumars, our own. Thanks, Great. Thank you so much. Can you stick around to the end?
Yeah.
Stick around and come back out at the end?